Myles Garrett had us all fooled. He really convinced us all that he was chasing the ring and he wanted to go out on top just to do all of these shenanigans, drop a press release about why he wanted out of Cleveland. He wanted to win a championship, and he ends up turning around, deciding to stay in Cleveland for a very good reason. You can't blame the brother. They gave him a Godfather offer. When a team offers you the opportunity to become the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, it's an offer you can't refuse. He's getting paid $40 million a year. I can't blame him for taking this money, but I don't want to hear Myles Garrett crying when his career ends about how he never had an opportunity to compete. You see, this is what I don't understand about these NFL players. They want to win, but they want to get paid as much money as possible. When you're on an organization that wasted one of the greatest left tackles to ever play this game, what the hell are you thinking deciding to stick around, taking all this money, and still think you're going to win? Myles Garrett knows doggone well that he never wanted to go to a championship contender. He was just using all of this as leverage for contract negotiations. And I get it that, it's hard to turn down this kind of generational money, but if you are a Super Bowl champion, you can make up for the loss of money that you don't get from signing these massive contracts on a championship team like the Commanders or the Bills. You can make up for those financial losses and what you get back from brand deals, sponsors, advertisements. I feel like being a Super Bowl champion, especially when you've already had the career that Myles Garrett has had to this point, exceeds getting this kind of money from a terrible team like the Browns. This team is going nowhere. I'm not trying to hate on the Cleveland Browns, but let's just be honest about the situation that they're in. We don't know if they're going to be able to get a halfway decent quarterback. You got a GM and a head coach that are both on the hot seat, and I guess that makes sense why trading Myles Garrett to begin with was really overly ambitious by me and a bunch of fans out there. It was always going to be a long shot that Myles Garrett ended up playing elsewhere next season due to how big of a cap hit the Browns would have taken to trade him away. And Stefanski and their general manager, with them both, having their jobs on the line this season, trading away Myles Garrett wouldn't have benefited them, because if they're not around to take advantage of those draft picks, what's the point? You might as well keep them. And it's hard to find a suitable replacement for one of the greatest defensive players in the history of this league. When you draft Hall of Fame level players, the goal isn't to let them walk. The goal is for them to retire with your organization, especially when they're in the middle of their prime. And despite Myles Garrett getting a little bit older, he's inching closer to 30, which is that age where you start to see players decline. With him being a future gold jacket recipient, he still has about 4-5 years left of elite level football. Remember, Khalil Mack 2 seasons ago, at the age of 32, had 17 sacks. There's still a lot of juice left in the tank that Myles Garrett has, but I just wanted to see him play for an organization that gave him the opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl. If you're a Browns fan, I know you probably don't already disliked the video and clicked off by now, but if you're listening to this, just be honest. Do you really think that Myles Garrett is ever going to win a Super Bowl on the Cleveland Browns? It's okay to be honest, despite being a fan. I think the answer is pretty obvious. No. We saw Joe Thomas fall victim to the same trap. We know these players are really competitive, and they low-key want to be responsible for saying that, yeah, I changed the Cleveland Browns franchise. I was that player who helped catapult this organization from poverty to Super Bowl champions. But, eventually you get to a point in your career, you're like 8-9 years in, you're Myles Garrett. You just got to say, I'm never going to have an opportunity to win. And I don't think that the Browns were the only team that would have given him this offer somewhat. Maybe they wouldn't have given him so much guaranteed, but they definitely could have made up for that money in other different ways. I'm really disappointed in Myles Garrett's decision. to stay with the Cleveland Browns. And it's just another example of how these players are the biggest hypocrites in the world. They'll tell you one thing: I want an opportunity to compete, I want an opportunity to go out on top as a champion, and then they end up chasing the bag instead of chasing the rings. I'm not mad at it. It's generational money. Once again, it's hard to turn down the opportunity to become the highest paid player in football. But a guy like Myles Garrett, I think his legacy kind of would get somewhat overlooked after he retires, with the fact that, you don't always see him in these national televised games. So it's easy to forget how good a guy like Myles Garrett is when his career is all said and done, when you don't always get to see him playing in meaningful games come January. And when you think of Lawrence Taylor, the reason why he gets brought up so much as being not just one of the greatest defensive players of all time, but one of the greatest football players of all time, is due to, his role that he played in the New York Giants winning Super Bowls, along with Bill Belichick being his defensive coordinator. I feel like when you're a Hall of Fame player, but you also have a few Super Bowl accolades to your resume, it makes you even more solidified in NFL history. It makes it even more impossible to forget you. Not to say that we all are going to forget about Myles Garrett, but it just is it just feels different knowing that you went out a Super Bowl champion, and you also were one of the best players ever, like Aaron Donald. When you have a Super Bowl, you are immortalized in NFL history. Now, when you're a Hall of Famer, you're immortalized in NFL history as well, but we tend to remember the players that we saw more in big games than guys like Myles Garrett. Unless you're a diehard football fan like me and you got NFL Sunday ticket, you're watching all these games, like within the next couple of years of Myles Garrett's retirement, you're easily going to forget how dominant this guy was until you end up seeing his name pop up again. I just wanted to see Myles Garrett have an opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl, and staying with the Browns is the complete opposite of what he said at the start of this offseason. But kudos to him. Can't hate the brother for getting life-changing money. But I just wanted to see him have opportunity to go out with a Super Bowl ring.